言うことは一つだけ。絶対負けねえ。
How's it going, everybody? This is Nothing XS with a new player analysis video. This one is for the .01 players. That would be the classic 1997 Tsubasa, the dream-chasing football kid, as well as the rare genius Jun Misugi, the Tata Misaki, the other football king, and Natureza, Brazil's magician. This video was commissioned by Hapticarc, who recently was able to find the Natureza, and he wanted a bit of a player analysis for him, so he asked for the .01 players, and here we are. So without any delay, let's get started. First off, we have Tsubasa Ozora, the dream-chasing football kid. He was incredibly desirable at the time of his release. He was the original .01% chance player, and he still has some value to him, albeit not quite as much as he did on his original release. He's less of a pure shooter and more of an everyman player that basically is at or around 9k in every non-shooting stat and 9.9k as a shooter. This Tsubasa actually serves as an interesting backup plan against non-Japanese players if you inexplicably manage to have him while not having the champion of Nankatsu instead. There are some shortcomings, of course. Despite having great skill support, his passive is only a 10% non-Japanese player killer passive, and that's not that impressive now, although it was a bit more impressive when he was released. Furthermore, he will not really be shooting the ball much at all, which is kind of a shame considering that it's where his stats are primarily leaning on, with that 9.9k shot, particularly since he had Tsubasa's strongest shot stat and strongest shot at 490, requiring Misaki for the longest time, especially when he was released. Lastly, he will need a lot of strong skills to really do a good amount of work out there. He has an A pass, A tackle, or rather he will need an A pass, A tackle, A interception, and A dribble. And all the skills you will want to use are pretty expensive in terms of stamina consumption. He is mostly a collection item, but a playable one if push comes to shove. One of the big reasons he was so popular when he came out is because he was, I think, one of the few players that had at the time all red plus 10, and if you had him and also some other of the all red plus 10s, like maybe the 11, it was very easy to build a 30% team back when no one else could, and that was very strong. Basically, he was one of the players that, if you did have him, made red pretty strong in the meta. Position, he is an attacking midfielder. His roles are striker and utility. He is an A-tier unit, and you can no longer get him. He is impossible to get unless you play the Chinese server and you manage to get the other, like, the version of him that doesn't have the official uniform. For his limit breaks, if you don't care about the warnings I gave you and actually intend to score with this player, you can still try the classic standard striker at limit break, but it's not very good on him. That would be 25 speed shot power and 22 3 pass technique. And if you have effectively realized he can't really score and its time is best spent supporting the rest of the team, particularly when facing non-Japanese players, here's what you want to do. You go utility, 16, 16, 18 for the dribble tackle speed row, 17, 17, 16 for the pass intercept technique row. For his grading, the world of Captain Tsubasa Dream Team has changed a lot since the 2017 banner, and being that this kind of player doesn't seem likely to be in line for a hidden ability evolution, I don't feel like he'll ever really be better than the ratings shown here indicate. He's average at just about everything in the same way Dreamfest Levin is, making him in some ways a strictly better version of that Levin and with access to stronger skills, but Levin is actually available and Levin will probably get more skills with time, so obviously Levin better consideration. Grading, he has an A scorer, A enabler, and A defender. He doesn't apply a whole lot of pressure because the intercept's not that high. He's pretty independent, but not that independent because he does need Misaki for his actual shot, and that will take up one slot. He is pretty flexible though, S, because he is Tsubasa. Tsubasa is incredibly flexible, but he's only in one position, so not that flexible. He is quite durable as well with a little bit like, I think it was 1100 stamina. We'll check it out in a sec. But he does have excellent skill support. Tsubasa will always have double S skill support. He has skill support everywhere. His team skill isn't what it used to be, just 10% to all red, which is useful for some things, but not really all that broken. And his passive is B. It's just a non-Japanese killer, which is pretty broad, but not quite what he needs to really make him good. Stamina 1100, and as you can see, all his stats are in the 5s and 6s, and they're in the high 5s usually, which means that his in-game stats are 9k shot, 9k dribble, 9.9k shot, 9.1k pass, 9.1k tackle, and 8.7k intercept. He is still, as every Tsubasa, good at high and low balls. Finally, for his skill build, he comes with S golden twin shot, and I would give him the A wing dribble, which he already comes with. Then you give him the A drive pass, A Aurora Curtain EX, which is strictly better than the A Aurora Curtain he comes with, and A wing interception. You aren't really going to be using that golden twin shot very much, except to potentially clear the ball or on a rebound where he's the only available shooter, but he has plenty of access to good 300 plus momentum A skills, so you should put those to use if you have them. Next up, we have Tata Misaki, the other football kid. There are two versions of Junior Youth Misaki, and they both have passives that rely on Tsubasa, but they curiously serve different roles. And actually, there's actually 3 versions of Green Junior Youth Misaki. I forgot that 2017 Misaki is also now a Junior Youth player. Anyways, the original Junior Youth version is often called Cancer Misaki because his ability to pass is still pretty much unbeatable, and he is a staple of every green team that even remotely considers to run any version of Misaki. His reliance on Tsubasa is somewhat mitigated by the fact that basically every green team that would run Misaki in the first place would also run True Captaincy for the debuff shield. Since that version is the most obvious competitor in terms of being played to this one, we'll talk about their stats without a limit break to compare the two. First and foremost, the other Misaki wins in dribbling, passing, and interception, while this one's a better tackler and shooter. That said, while Golden Twin Shot is a pretty good shot on Misaki, it's not the strongest shot available to him, because that would be Flash Raiju Shot. In general, this Misaki's biggest issue is that he doesn't really outclass the original Junior Youth Misaki enough except in 2 ways. He can be played at defensive midfielder, which is actually quite better than you think it is, and he can shoot. The first is a little valuable, but the second isn't valuable enough to consider benching the original member of the Golden Duo, who brings too much value to a team with his ability to pass. Basically, if this guy was a little bit better at passing and he was just strictly a better version of the classic Japan's Golden Duo, then he would be much more valuable. Because he's not, however, then he's not quite so good. And also, having an S shot as your primary skill does make you more limited in how you can be built in terms of flexibility. Positions are attacking midfielder and defensive midfielder. His roles are striker, enabler, and utility. I think he is an A tier. He's not quite S tier. He's not good enough, I think, to be S tier. And he is still available in the pool. You can get him at a 0.01% rate. If you roll that the 0.01%, then you can find this or one of the other 3 still available, as they're called Okamoto players. For his limit breaks, the classic striker build is offered here because it is one of the 2 options you can use if you're going to try and use this Misaki to shoot the ball regularly. And that would be, again, 25 speed shot power and 22-3 pass technique. Now, if you don't need this Misaki to be one of your shooters, thank God, it is instead advised to go for a full utility build. The reason why you don't go max pass intercept is simple. If that's actually what you wanted to do, you would just use Golden Duo instead because he's better at it. For utility, it's a 16, 16, 18 dribble tackle speed and pass intercept technique 17, 17, 16. For his grading, this amount of shooting is pretty decent, but being strapped for skills means that you'll not have access to a full midfielder's toolkit, such as the life of a midfielder who's supposed to be able to score and as such is saddled with an S shot in their main skill slot. Still, not everything's bad as a result. He's acceptable on defense and still is great at enabling, although not quite as much as his non-0.01 and much easier to build counterpart. Still, being able to play him at defensive midfielder is incredibly useful for a number of builds, although that usefulness has begun to wane as hidden ability dream defensive midfielders become more prevalent. For the actual grades, he's an A scorer, an S enabler, he is an A defender. He would be a little bit better if he had higher stats there. He could be an S defender, obviously. You can make him an S defender, but because he is a shooter primarily and he takes up 1 spot, you have to determine whether you want S enabling or S defense. But I think by standard, he would be like an A defender. He offers B pressure. He's not very good at pressuring because his intercept's not quite as high as Golden Duo. He's an S flexibility player. He has A for durability because he has pretty decent stamina. His skill support is excellent. It is Misaki after all. He does have lots of skills available to him. He has an A team skill, not that great, even though it is All Japan plus 10%. There are much better ones available now. And his passive only gives him 10% in stats. There are better ones out there right now. And this one's just restricted to 1 player, so at the end of the day, you still have to play him with Tsubasa to get it. For his stamina, 1006 is pretty much like the lower echelon. It could have been easily been S, but his skills that you want to use are all expensive on him, so he is a little bit more durable at least. As you can see from his stats, he does have low ball plus 25%, but you're probably not going to give him a volley. Either way, his stats wind up at 9.1k dribble, 10.5k shot, 10.1k pass, and then 8.7k tackle and 9.4k intercept, running everything together. For his skill build, S Golden Twin Shot is what he comes installed with, just like the 0.01 Tsubasa, and I would probably stick with the A Golden Duo, A Magnificent Interception EX. He comes with A International Dribble as well, which is nice, and give him A Elegant Tackle. He does also, by the way, come with the A Golden Duo. If you decide to lean a little further into enabling rather than keeping the ball for yourself, you may want to determine whether you will be using this Misaki to beat the defensive line or not. If you are, consider ditching the tackle for an A or S pass. If not, you could replace the Golden Duo altogether with a pass instead. S Golden Duo is a viable option if you intend on leveling it to make up for the fact that he's not quite as strong as the Junior Youth Golden Duo Misaki. Next up, we have Jun Misugi, the Rare Genius. He is a 30% full body stand user with a small gas tank. This Misugi is probably the most game-changing of the 0.01% players, albeit one of the hardest units in the game to use to their full potential. The issues with trying to properly field this player were a lot worse before, when Super Solidarity wasn't a thing, but now that it's no longer an issue, this Misugi's power is much more greatly felt on the field due to his good base stats and high bump from full body stand, making him a credible, albeit not overwhelming threat against many goalkeepers in the game. His first S99 tap diving volley on a shooting limit break reaches 572 momentum for a difficult to handle 68.2k shot. That's not impossible to catch for most current top tier keepers, but is much more than a routine save for them. Furthermore, his overhead, which is a bit stronger and is also buffed by his high ball stat, can hit up to 73.6k as well. Very nice. Unfortunately, he only really gets one shot at max strength, and he can't really use any other moves beforehand, or he will weaken himself enough to no longer be at maximum capacity, which is the primary reason why he's so difficult to use. The fact that his only S shot is not particularly awe-inspiring doesn't help his case, and Rainbow Japan teams may elect to use the green hidden ability Misugi or red 97 Misugi instead to bolster their teams. He is a forward, attacking, or defensive midfielder. His roles are striker, utility, and enabler, and I think he's S tier. I think the full body stand is what separates him from the other 0.01 players. He is also still available in the pool for 0.01% players. For his limit breaks, if you aren't expecting a standard striker build by now on a guy that shoots, I don't know what to tell you, but Misugi can definitely put it to use if you determine that you'd rather pass or use his 1-2 to advance instead of only shoot with him. Standard striker is 25 speed, 25 shot, 25 power, and 22 3-pass technique. Now, this is other ones not much different to the standard striker build, except it foregoes passing altogether to increase your success with a wide intercept. The goal is to be difficult to pass over and very fast so that you can put some additional pressure, then shoot the ball when you run as close as you can after receiving it. That build is 25 speed, 25 shot, 25 power, and intercept 22 of 3. Now, with this Misugi, there are a couple more options because he's so balanced on his stats, and these are the two where you forego shooting whatsoever. So what's that, you say? You want an enabling version of Misugi that plays a full utility style, and you want to use full body stand to be toxic in the midfield instead of actually shooting? Well, there's a build for that. You can go 16-16-18 to dribble tackle speed and 17-17-16 to pass intercept technique. This is viable if you haven't found the S shot, don't want to give him an A shot, and really don't plan on using an A shot, and you would rather actually enable the rest of your team instead, because say you're using Super Solidarity to run Roberto Hyuga up front, or Hino Hyuga and Roberto off to the side or something like that, and this Misugi can actually go without being a shooter primarily. But wait, what? You don't actually care about tackling or dribbling at all? You just want to pass the ball around and throw big interceptions at people? Stamina be damned? Sure, that's certainly a way to build them, and it'll work because of full body stance, so go with the Master of Technique, which is 25 speed, and then pass intercept technique all 25. For his grading, he's not the scorer he once was. Once better goalkeeper starts showing up, he's still quite solid in a lot of different ways though, at least for the early parts of his stamina where full body stand is lifting him. Still, this Misugi is the Swiss Army knife of the 0.01% players, only held back by the fact that he has an unwieldy overhead as his main skill and a low amount of stamina for a player of his caliber. With his Dreamfest-esque stat distribution, he will still be okay on his later bits of stamina so long as you're not using him to shoot the ball. For his actual individual grades, he is an S scorer and enabler. He is A at defending, pressure, and independence, could be S depending on whether you invest on them or not. He is, however, double S on flexibility. He has a lot of flexibility on the field. He does have B durability. He doesn't have a lot of stamina. It's quite low for a kind of character of this type, and also his skills are kind of expensive. He does have S skill support. He's not quite Tsubasa level, but he has all sorts of nice skills. Some of them are just very hard to find, like Skylab Interception. And his team skill S, but his passive is double S. Full body stand 30% is one of the best full body stands you can find in this game if you're not named Chai and Chan and you weren't free. For his stamina, 913, again, not that much, especially not for him. He's going to be using skills a lot. For his in-match stats, 9.4k dribble, 10.4k shot is the highest one, and everything else is in the 9s, 9.5k pass, 9.2k tackle, 9.1k block, and 9.4k intercept. Just really, really, really high stats. There's basically no other player in the game who's basically 9s everywhere and 10 in one category. He is incredibly flexible, very, very, very good. For his skill build, he comes with S ultimate overhead kick, so you kind of have to carry it. If you're going to be a shooter, then S tap diving volley, A drive pass, A first break, which he does come with, and A magnificent interception. You can build this a couple of different ways. If you care about any kind of defense, then magnificent or skylab interception is very important. Otherwise, put a dribble there. If you don't care about shooting at full power and want to bring the ball up more, replace first break with a dribble. actually, not first break. Actually, drive pass. My bad. Technically. I messed that one up. Anyways, flexible to be sure, even with an overhead stuck at the main skill slot. There's a good argument for using it S volley too, but I wouldn't do that because, I mean, you would have to stick him only at forward, and then you would have to drop one of the other skills. Now, if you do decide to go with full utility, go with S drive pass, A magnificent footwork, A skylab interception, and A team play tackle. If you decide that you don't need this player to shoot on your team and want to make him more of an enabler or utility man, there's options for you. If you decide to go all in on passing and interception instead, you can drop the A magnificent footwork or team play tackle and instead keep A first break, taking advantage of pumped up passing and interception stats to almost guarantee you'll bring the bar forward. It makes you less independent, of course, as you have to run specific players, but it is still quite nice. Finally, the one that at least Haptic has been waiting for, Natureza, Brazil's Magician. When this guy was released, it was a little harder to figure out what to do with him because his passive made him vital to Rainbow non-Japanese teams, but his passive insisted that he be run with Tsubasa on the field. Now that things with like Super Solidarity exist, it's easy to find a place for this guy in a meta team, so let's talk about him. Well, there isn't actually much to say. On paper he sounds interesting, and he certainly looks pretty cool, but there's a few problems with this version of Natureza that are a little hard to overcome. The most obvious is that even after a limit break, his shooting stat only ever reaches 13.5k, but his main S shot caps at 64.5k total shot, which isn't all that. Furthermore, it isn't really even his best shot, which is kind of a bummer considering that skill slots are limited in this game. The best shot you could put on him is the Miracle Flying Drive shot from Dreamfest Natureza. Now, that does make him quite nice. It helps him hit 69.2k on his shot, and despite being very, very expensive in terms of stamina cost, it is worth giving it to him if you seriously are going to run this player because it is the highest potential shot that you can give him. It's much more respectable and in line with some of the better scorers in the game. Ultimately though, his toolkit is what makes him viable. He wants to play with Tsubasa, and he has that Dream Duo EX, and you can give that to him. You can give him a better S shot, and he comes with a nice and hard to find A pass cut on him, and you're going to remove that one to give it to somebody else because pass cutting is not his forte. If you can't put him together, he's a competent South American red forward / attacking midfielder that wants to fit Tsubasa on his team to really maximize his strength. There are red Japan builds that can easily fit him at forward right now, and he'll actually get a couple of buffs, especially because of Super Solidarity. Super Solidarity, I think, increases the tier value of many different players. Natureza is not far off from Double S, frankly, because of that. He's not quite as good as like a Schneider or something like that, which you could also basically try to fit at the front of a Red Japan team, but Schneider, for example, wouldn't get almost any like team buffs. For example, he wouldn't get like any hidden abilities on the field, so you could give him like 45% of the field, but then you wouldn't be taking advantage of some hidden abilities. There's a lot of players that fit in that kind of way because of that. Anyways, position, forward, and attacking midfielder. His roles are striker and enabler. He is an S tier character, and I think he's not too far off from Double S, and again, he's still in the pool available to anyone that's trying to pull for 0.01% players. For his limit breaks, well, guess what the first one is? That's right, go fast and shoot a lot. It's the standard striker, which you should all be familiar with by now if you watch these videos. Speed, shot, power 25, pass, technique 22-3. Now, he is a better tackler than he is a cutter, and he is a better dribbler than a passer, so if you decide to focus on that, go with the classic run and shoot, which is 25 all to dribble, speed, shot, and power. For his grading, he would be so much better with maybe a little higher shot, or just an easier access to a good A pass, or just, you know, give him Miracle Flying Drive shot as his S shot. But he has neither of those things, and as such, he has to try and work with what he's got, but what he's got is really not that bad. His pass cut is good to remove to give to a version that's likely to put it to good work with it leveled up to a good place, giving you a little room to play around with his skills. Unfortunately, to use him to score, you really need to replace his S shot. Since you can't overwrite the main skill, you wind up carrying a skill that you don't really want and needing to pitch a Dreamfest player to steal their skill instead. For his grading individual grading, that would be S scoring and S enabling. He is an A defender. He applies about B levels of pressure. He is not very independent. He does need Tsubasa to reach his maximum potential, and he needs him for his best 1-2 and for his main S shot, etc. So S flexibility though, because he can play at 2 slots and he can be built slightly a couple different ways, and that does make him actually surprisingly flexible. S durability, has plenty of stamina. S skill support, he is Natureza, so he has access to a bunch of skills. His team skills, whatever though, although non-Japanese plus 10% probably merits a little bit more than an A, but it's just not strong enough in today's meta. And A passive because it's just a 10% buff, and it's also tied just to one player. For his stamina, 1042, not bad at all. As you can see, his stats, they're pretty much loaded on all sorts of categories. That makes for a 9.7k dribble, 10.8k shot, 9.2k pass, 9.3k tackle, and then 8.7k intercept, which is the other actual defensive ability that you would care about. Finally, for his skill build, we've got the S Brazilian Dream Twin Shot. That's what he comes with, and you'll probably never use it. However, you probably want to give him the A Dream Duo EX. You want to find him an A High Speed Shadow Feint to give it to him, and an A Flying Drive Pass from another version, and with all of that put together, also S Miracle Flying Drive Shot. If you don't want to level the second S shot, you can instead give him A Backstep Tackle as a more defensive option, but you're leaving a bit of power on the table. A New Brazil Football is a little cheaper, but it's also nowhere as strong, which is part of what makes Dream Duo EX one of the crazier skills in the game, and why it's so desirable. Also, unlike Misugi, you don't depend on your stamina to score, and you have a good amount of it. So it feels less bad to just use it to advance the ball when necessary. Do remember that he has like 69k shot, which is actually pretty nice for a shooter in the modern era. Anyways guys, thank you all for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, please go ahead and click the like button and leave a comment telling me what you think. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, please subscribe and click the little bell icon to be notified of when new videos or posts are made before checking out the rest of the channel. Also, if you would like to support my work, you can do so by either leaving a tip by clicking on the Streamlabs link in the description, or by joining my Patreon, where you can subscribe monthly and enjoy the unique benefits available to my Patreon subscribers. You can check that out by following the Patreon link below or using the URL shown in the video. Thank you guys for checking this out. Thank you Hapticarc for commissioning this video. I hope to see you all soon.